I think most of this activity is going to be in the courts. I don't know if people have sort of noticed from news reports sort of how many court suits or lawsuits there are out there right now. My best count, which could be out of date because it changes daily, is that there are 39 cases going on right now in 21 states around the country. About half of these are in federal court, about half of these are in state courts.
The courts are where we're going to likely see the next 16 states. In fact, it's going to come not that way at all, but we may pick up 2 or 3 more states on a state-by-state basis, but sooner or later, and probably sooner, we're going to be back at the Supreme Court asking for them to say once and for all that there's a federal constitutional right to marriage equality that applies throughout the country.
So I wish we didn't have to go to the ballot box on this. I wish our neighbors didn't have to vote on whether or not we can actually marry our partner. But in some states, that's going to be the case. And so we can use that momentum in the states where ballot measures will go forward to mobilize people to vote.
But the DOMA decision last June, Justice Kennedy's opinion for the court, I think people have generally read that as a promise from him that I will be there in your court if and when this case comes back to the court. I don't wish it to happen too soon. He basically was telegraphing that in the way he acted on the bench and the way he wrote the opinion.
There are enough votes in the Florida legislature right now to pass the Florida Competitive Workforce Act that would add sexual orientation and gender identity to Florida civil rights statutes. That's where we are right now. So, my cousin had the experience of speaking to a relative who had experienced slavery, and she also had the experience of voting for Barack Obama twice. And so the standard that we ought to put forward for our community isn't simply the end of legalized discrimination. It's about what Dr. King said, injecting a glorious new strain of love into the veins of society. We need to create a place where we are affirmed from the day we are born.
Thank you. We have had to bring a number of cases in Iowa because the Iowa Department of Public Health, among other agencies in Iowa, seems determined to put roadblocks in the way of recognition of marriages. So last year we had to bring a case on behalf of a lesbian couple who were having a child. The child died, and the state refused to put both mothers' names on the fetal death certificate. We won that case, but I mean, it's incomprehensible. We do lots of things that I think, oh my God, it's incomprehensible what people go through. But imagine losing a child and then having to sue in order to have both parents' names on the death certificate.
There's almost a consensus now that the government can't discriminate against LGBT people. And we're moving into a world in which the government is increasingly going to be telling private citizens they can't discriminate against LGBT people. And the next big fight, and this is going to be quite a protracted and complicated fight, is going to be in response to the right wing's move, which is to claim that they are victims of discrimination, religious discrimination, because they are being told they have to tolerate us, and they have to do business with us, they have to rent apartments to us, and they have to take pictures at our weddings like everybody else's. In New Mexico, there was a case. And they have to hire us. And so what you're going to see, and we're already starting to see, is claims that under the First Amendment provisions that protect free exercise of religion, they should be able to claim an exemption from any law that requires them to in some way tolerate or be friendly to or do business with gay people.
Training thousands of activists one-on-one, in person, across the country, we now have the most sophisticated online activist training program. where people can engage and build their skills online in addition to in person, and because that is how young people are learning more and more. So we're adapting the platforms that we're using. I do also think, the work won't be done. I very much agree with what both Kevin and Nadine have said. We only have to look at corporations to know that this is the case, right? We have made tremendous progress in corporate America. It's actually why a lot of people think that we're protected, right? Because their corporations have great policies. But when you ask people in corporate America if they're out, they're still not even out. Even when their corporations have the best policies, they've got a 100% on HRC's Equality Index. People are afraid to be out even in safe places. So our work will not be done, and we know that. And
get married, want to put their spouse's name on the lease. This has been done since rent stabilization was invented in New York. But now that landlords are dealing with same-sex couples who are wanting to do this, we represented in this last case a lesbian couple who have lived together since 1977 in the same apartment that one of them had lived in prior, and it was in her name. They got married, and they have been struggling with the landlord for over a year to get the spouse's name on the lease. And the landlord kept saying, well, New York doesn't recognize this marriage. It's like, really? I mean, I'm constantly saying, really? Where did you get this, right? So finally we sued, and finally I guess the landlord got better legal advice because they folded very quickly, although then the landlord came back and said, well, my lawyers tell me that I can do this if I want to, so I will. It's like, okay, our goal was to get the name on the lease, not to turn this landlord into a better person.